SWC 2026 is on the horizon, so I figured it'd be a perfect time to look back on the history of SWC and figure out who were the best LD5s of every year of SWC. Let's start with SWC 2017, the debut year. And the best LD5? Shoot, I don't know, dude, it was probably Ganymede. Obviously, I'm kidding, but it's just that Ganymede was so far and beyond better than any monster in SWC that year. He was on every single team. In fact, we used to call him Mr. 100% because he was so ubiquitous across pick ban phases. But this isn't a video about Ganymede. This is a video about the best LD5s of every calendar year of SWC. So for this one, we're gonna give it to Ragdoll. He was the premier LD5 of 2017. Granted, Ciara Giana was still a thing, and that name combo carried a lot of weight. But to be honest, it was less about LD5s and more about elementals anyway. So all that to say, 2017 belongs to Ragdoll. 2018 was a friend of Ragdoll, Vivachel, the Dark Harp Magician. She's able to cleanse and grant immunity for one turn along with the small heal on skill 2, but the star of the show was her third skill, Song of Switch Destiny. She's able to exchange the HP and attack bar ratios, thus either healing or hindering certain people. You can use it on your allies or your enemies, which is a great segue into SWC 2019, because this year was also Vivachel partnered with Ragdoll. They have some amazing synergy together. She can set him up for an ignore defense torrent right out the gate. So in that way, you've assembled a snipe comp while running a bruiser. Now this was just as cool as it sounded, but it carried a lot of risk, and it led to some of the most devastating misplays that I think we've ever seen. I think it was the Europe Cup of that year where Boss used Song of Switch Destiny to set up the Ragdoll, but then he got cut, so he didn't actually get to do it. Oh, dude. I still wish we could see that game, but with the ignore defense torrent. 2020 was really all about the RGB units, but the best LD5 of that year was Kitian Desheng. This was back before he was nerfed, when he could reduce attack bar by 50% per debuff. That's why he was the king of CC. He had hard crowd control on every single skill. Now, if we're willing to bend the rules a little bit, it's just you and me here, right? We could give it to Miho. We actually have a Summoner's War history episode on how Miho dominated the meta when her second awakening was introduced. That was back in the era of the crit rate bug. Oh, dude, do I miss the crit rate bug. I wish we could go back every single day. Now, with all that said, the RGB units were really popping that year. So if you want a picture of the meta, this is it. In SWC 2021, we have 4 contenders, and I'm low-key having a hard time making a decision. Giana and Ragdoll were still out there making waves, and Tian Lang was a super powerful counterpick. But it was Pontos that was soaking up the pre-bans and protecting his team. Plus, with Hagang at his side, he felt dang near unbeatable, but they were still getting outclassed by Karnal, Gani, and more. The RGB units were really shining for a few years there in SWC. Now 2022, just no discussion, that year completely belonged to Gurkha, the Dark Slayer. Peak Gurkha was insane. There was no stopping him, except for a balance patch. After that, nobody's heard from him again. Looking ahead to SWC 2023, there is a clear winner, but there's also a partner that needs to be mentioned because they kind of help get them there. The winner is Laura, the Light Occult Girl. She was picked a lot independently, but it was Laura and Wedjat that were picked together during the prelims as well as some of the regional cups that really established them as the best LD5s of that year. In fact, they were so good that both of them got nerfed before the Americas Cup of 2023. And that still wasn't enough to keep them out of the tournament scene entirely. In fact, both of them saw play during the World Finals. Granted, they just weren't quite as potent. Now, our other option here is to bend the rules a little bit like what we did for Miho and give it to Kinky, because he low-key deserves it. Dude was cracked back then. So insane that he should be on the list, even though he's not an LD5. He and Miho are the only 2 that I'm willing to bend the rules for. Everybody else, it's super strict. For SWC 2024, we yet again have 4 contenders for the top slot, and depending on who you ask, you'll likely get a different answer. For our damage category, Julian and Zeratu were both trying to aim for that #1 slot. Then we had Veronica, who's probably the best starter option in the game. But for our list today, I'm gonna give it to Berghild. Berghild is a turn cycling monster. And the more you read that passive, dude, that thing just goes on and on and on. And then they let her strip with every attack. Then you put her in the hands of Kelly and Bao. Oh my goodness. Felt like there was no stopping her. And that's why she was pre-banned a lot too. And finally, SWC 2025. Before I reveal the one for SWC 2025, let's take a brief intermission here. Do you guys remember when Lest absolutely cooked with the Light Frankenstein pick? Oh my goodness. That was like really cool. Anyway, the best LD5 of that year was Light Dark, surprising no one. But are there any other monsters that you think could be the #1 in their respective years of SWC? Let me know in a comment. We'll compare notes. Thank you for watching. We'll see y'all next time.